It's Saturday, March the 18th, 2023. You're listening to episode 7 of Wes and Shelley Share, Margin and the Rock. Where are we today, Shelley?
Oh, you would ask me the official name.
Well, here.
We are. Wait. I've got the map.
You have the map.
I'm opening my map. I'm in South Carolina, and we are at Landsford Canal State Park. So we've driven, it's about, 45 minutes?
An hour.
Hour, maybe, into South Carolina. It's a beautiful spring day. I think it's about 55 degrees.
60, yeah.
60. Sunny, and...
We are sitting on a fallen tree next to the Catawba River, and this was a canal that was built in the 1820s, maybe, right before the railroad. It seemed like it operated only about 5 years. And then the railroad, replaced it, basically. But Josh Durham, who is in the Friday morning men's group at Trinity Presbyterian Church, had told me about it. I think that was who told me about it. Oh, look at those green geckos over there on that tree trunk. And so, anyway, it's on the road to Columbia, South Carolina. And, we just wanted to come somewhere to have an adventure. So this is actually our Wanderlink. We're doing, Wonderlinks and Wanderlinks. And so we can share more about the link, but yeah, this is where we're at. So
what I really like right now is that the river is really high, but I just love having the sound of the river and being able to see it go by, and so many water birds out here, and I've seen a lot of turtles. We just saw 2 geckos. Beautiful spring trees. I don't think the spring trees will be around too much longer. I mean, they're already starting to leaf out. So, but this is a beautiful spring day.
There are water lilies that are they're endangered, actually. And let me see if I can find the name of them.
Yeah, it's in May and June.
Mm-hmm. May and June is the peak time.
We'll have to come back
to be able to see them. So
I think this is a place people come and kayak and things. It'd be great.
Spider lilies is what they're called. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'd be awesome to come back.
So we called this episode Margin and the Rock. So what is margin?
Well, you explain margin because you're the one that read the book, and that's your vocabulary. We're going to talk about some of the vocabulary that we use, especially during our weeks and our schedules. And I learned when we moved from Lubbock to Edmond, Oklahoma. I went back to work. Rachel was 2 when I went back to work, and that's about the time when Wes went to work for AT&T. And then after that, he became independent as an educational consultant and spent a lot of time away from home. He traveled quite a bit. Both with AT&T and as an educational consultant.
But 2 years for AT&T and about 5 independent.
Sure, and that left me at home with 3 children and a new job and 2 dogs. And so we had to develop a vocabulary for when I was feeling overwhelmed.
Wellness and relationships.
Yeah, it really was. It was. And so margin was something you had to work on, because when you're self-employed, especially, it's hard to determine what a work week looks like and any kind of consistency. And so anyway, we're going to use some vocabulary that have kind of carried us through some times when we've just been a busy family.
So we didn't record last weekend, and things have been busy. Things have been crazy. I've been on spring break this last week, which has been lovely. But, as we may detail with more specifics later, I mean, Shelley's had a really hard year. And
a busy year. Hard year, busy year.
A year of transition. Yeah. And overall, if you're new to our podcast, we are trying to do this we said on Sundays. Maybe we're going to do it on the weekends. I think it's kind of cool, actually, to record on location at a neat place where we've been. We recorded our first on location a couple weeks ago when we were at Freedom Park, in Charlotte. But we're empty nesters now. We have 3 kids, and we're using this podcast as a way to process this new season of our life and hoping to share some resources and ideas that might help other people.
we've noticed that our biggest fans are our children, and they really enjoy listening to stories from when they were little, and when they're homesick and missing us as away from home. It's a great way to just kind of be with us and hang out with us for a little bit.
So actually, before we get into the margin and all that and the rock, what does being here in this place by this river remind you of? I'll tell you that it reminds me of going camping in New Mexico when we had our pop-up trailer, and there was at least one. I don't know if it was a week. It was in this. I think it was in the summer. It was not a formal campground with hosted sites and pull-ins or whatever. It was just this whole area, but we were able to basically, I think we parked maybe even between arms of the stream, and so we had a stream, I think, running on two sides of our trailer where our campsite was, and we just absolutely, just like this, you could hear the river all evening. Now, of course, it can be dangerous with flash floods and things like that. You got to be careful where you pick your campsites and things like that. But it was beautiful, and it was awesome. And now we'll tell Google Home, hey Google, like last night, I think you made it. We had rain last night, which is lovely. We love being in North Carolina. We've had an unseasonably wet and warm winter, but anyway, sometimes we'll say thunderstorm sounds. I don't know if we've said sounds of the gurgling river.
Mine were just last night. It was already raining, but I wanted to hear it a little more. So I just did, hey, Google, play rain sounds.
You're supposed to say, hey, G, because if people are playing a podcast, they'll really make Google do that.
Oh, that would be funny, though.
Well, yeah, but you got to use code words.
Okay.
So what does this make? Besides that, is there any other time outdoors when you remember being by a river? Ooh, how about I
think always.
Iowa?
We have always, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, so family friends, John and Karen Youngblood, had a cabin right on the Mississippi River, and I can remember sitting out on their deck.
Was it McGregor? It was just south of McGregor, Iowa.
Right.
What was the name of that? They lived in Olwine, but that wasn't where the river was.
No.
But
sitting out on their deck, looking at the Mississippi River, watching the big barges go by, and fishing and taking the boat out, and
and the barges and those were canals too. They had canals that were just up from there. That was so cool. They had salt mines. Man, that's a neat area.
Yeah, it's a wonderful area.
Okay, so why don't you open up your notes here and let's get it. So Dr. Richard Swenson, wrote a book that I read probably in the early to mid 2000s, and it is called Margin: Restoring Emotional, Physical, Financial, and Time Reserves to Overloaded Lives by Richard A. Swenson. We'll include a link to that in our show notes, which you can go to shelleyfryer.com/podcast, but probably wherever you're listening to this, we're putting our show notes basically into the description. I think we're doing that. So anyway, I probably should write blog posts about each one.
No, let's just margin, dear.
Okay.
This is all about margin. Make some margin instead of adding to your...
Okay, so margin is the distance between your limit and your load. And you can have the same event happen to you. And if you have a lot of margin, like maybe you just came off of, let's imagine, a month-long vacation. Who does that? Maybe a week-long, 2-week-long vacation where you were, not on email and you were not having to work at all and you just relaxed. You can have the same thing happen right after that, or the same thing happen in the middle of your work week when things are stressful and you've got all kinds of things going on and, a crisis and whatever. And anyway, you just respond differently. And so the vocabulary is, how's your margin doing? How can you build your margin? And absolutely, I think being out here can build our margin. I've encouraged Shelley to drink this into your soul, like this being in nature, being in a beautiful place, spring.
Nature person, and anytime that I can go out in nature, it just really, I don't know if it's a release of endorphins or whatever, but just feel better. Yeah, I just feel better when we get out. And this has been a stressful year, and I've noticed the stress has definitely taken a toll on me. It's definitely taken a toll on our relationship. It's just been a really hard year of change, and but we love being here. And so doing things like this, getting out of our box, going for a hike, definitely fuels my soul. So fuels my soul.
And so recognizing symptoms, like sometimes when I'm feeling emotional, when if something, when something sets you off, it's like, the straw that broke the camel's back, or you're just like, you respond worse than you normally would.
Sure, when you have a very strong emotional reaction.
A short fuse, an emotional response. Those are all signs of not having margin. And so it's helped us to have that vocabulary and to think about, because we each build margin differently. Shelley really needs a lot of time alone, a lot more, I think, than I do. And so I think that's a way that you build margin. And you also just deal with stress.
Reading books. I really always need to have a book going. And for me, it's just science fiction or historical fiction or fantasy novels I really enjoy. So I need to always have some kind of book.
And I kind of got away, it seems like during part of our lives, maybe from as much outdoor, hiking, camping, that had been an element pretty strongly for our family.
I think it was when the kids started getting busy with school.
When they were younger, we did more.
To debate tournaments and sports tournaments and
theater,
a lot of theater. Those kinds of things got into our schedule, and we didn't have as much free time on weekends or evenings to
so
do
things go in cycles, but that's
do.
one of the things that's been nice about being able to be intentional about this time, is saying we're going to go on adventures and find outdoor spaces to be, and really try to have that feed our souls and build our margin.
Another word that was kind of pivotal, and how neither one of us can remember the book, but it was this image of a rock. And in a relationship, carrying a rock.
Carrying a rock.
So sometimes the rock that you're carrying can get really heavy, especially when you take on. And so having that vocabulary,
like when I was gone so much, and Shelley was having to do take care of the kids and take care of so many things at home,
clean the house and cook the meals, and
that was before I really got into cooking.
No, it was way before. But anyway, so sometimes he would come home and want everybody to be happy. Hey, I've just been out and I'm anxious and excited to be home. And everybody, or usually me, was grumping at him, And so when we had the vocabulary to talk about, I've been carrying this big rock and this big, and so anyway, we were able to talk about it and talk through it and get some perspective on that. I think it's important to have common vocabulary, especially when you're talking about difficult things, especially when you're talking about things that involve emotions. So,
relationships.
And relationships.
I never read that book. You read it and shared part of it. But I think part of that book was about folks that had marital problems, and their relationships, in some cases, became broken because there was one person, who felt like they were carrying a heavier rock, making these sacrifices for the other person, and maybe they were not acknowledged, and maybe they didn't see hope of having their load lightened and not just having this kind of unequal and unfair, amount of stress and burden and just work. So how's your rock now?
My rock is, right now, my work rock is heavy. It's a very heavy work rock. I feel like I'm devoting more time than I would like on preparing lesson plans and going over materials and, hours on the weekends and maybe hours after I come home. It's just, new subjects. And part of that's just a natural, starting a new job at a new grade level with new prep times. So I think my rock, especially with work, but my home rock has been much better. You do all the cooking and you do all the shopping, and with just the two of us, managing a smaller house is much easier, and we have a lot of opportunities to build our margin by going out on hikes and walks with our dogs. And so anyway, I guess it's not a secret anymore, but I have decided to resign my position as a classroom teacher at the end of this school year. So I will not be a classroom teacher next year. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, at Shiloh Valley Elementary in Union County Public Schools.
Quite sure what I will be doing next year. I don't have a definite plan. We've got some ideas that we're kind of talking about, but I think I only have maybe 5 or 6 more years left before like an official retirement. I don't know. I mean, it's a kind of a random number, but I don't want to be.
Shelley would.
I don't want to spend that time being stressed all the time.
Shelley would love to be retired. So, and she wants to write a book. That's something, and we'll talk more about that later. But I think there'll be good outcomes from this year, and there already have been some. But sometimes when you're in the middle of a very difficult situation, it's hard to see those. So, Okay, so that's halftime. Let's hear from our sponsor. This episode of Wes and Shelley Shares is brought to you by Cook with Wes. Cook with Wes is my, Wes Fryer's, personal passion project, sharing lots of food photos, a few recipe videos, lots of barbecue and smoked meat adventures, and many other recipes from my indoor and outdoor kitchens. You can find all our family recipes on food.wesfryer.com and follow Cook with Wes on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. If you're on Mastodon, and really, why not? Since Twitter has become a bit of a dumpster fire, you can search for the hashtag CookWithWes to find my latest food shares there. Well, I did start a separate YouTube channel for Cook with Wes, but I've continued to post most of my cooking videos on YouTube on my main channel. You can access the complete playlist at wfryer.me/cook. Thanks for tuning in to Wes and Shelley Shares. I hope to see you on social media on one of the channels for Cook with Wes. All right, so we definitely want to talk about our Wanderlink, but let's continue a little bit more talking about health and wellness and maybe how our understandings of health and wellness have expanded beyond margin and the rock, because that was definitely important vocabulary pretty early in our marriage, in our relationship. So what are your vocabulary words now that supplement margin and the rock? We don't talk about the rock that much, but what are your important vocabularies now with wellness and health?
I think something that I have been working on in the last 2 years is just building my habits of health. And what does health look like? And health is developing the habits that we're going to need for a lifetime.
Not just a short-term diet.
Not just a short-term diet, but really noticing what it is that a healthy lifestyle looks like. Some of the rocks right now that I've been able to develop as I look back on this journey is developing the habit of drinking water.
No, you're not saying a rock in a bad sense. You're talking about a good rock.
Sure. I mean, I do think there are good rocks. I mean, sometimes your rock can get heavy.
Well, the rock maybe that you build your health on.
Right. Moose.
Moose, no.
Come back. Come here. But I think there are some rocks that need to stay. And one of the rocks and habits of health that I'm building is the need for drinking water. And we've talked a little bit about that. But that is something I really don't have to think about anymore. I get up, I leave the house. I've usually got 2 to 3 water bottles with me. I eat and I drink water.
Speaking of which, here, I'll have the water.
No, I left it at the bridge, and so we have to go pick it up because it fell over.
I was going to drink some water because you're talking about water. Because you're better at that than I am right now. I still have to think about it more.
That is not anything really I have to think about anymore.
It's become a habit.
It has become a habit. Sometimes when I'm out of routine, I notice
64 inches. 64 miles of water.
Yeah, 64 ounces minimum. I also know that getting plenty of sleep is really important for me too, which has been hard because this Eastern time shift schedule, as well as the school schedule that I have, has
getting up at 4 in the morning every day,
too early and leave for work too early, and so really I have to get in bed like 9.
8:30.
8:30, 9, in order to get my good 8 hours of sleep.
You basically pass
Going
out.
to sleep is not hard for me anymore. I mean, that's another thing about being healthy. I have really good sleep.
Exhausted.
Healthy exercise, healthy movement. That's one thing that my goal is to kind of level up. Hopefully this summer when I get a little more margin in my life, but really focusing on building muscle and muscle tone.
But that is the key, having margin, because
Yes, it
right
is.
now you really don't have any margin at all.
No, and I think what I've really struggled with this year, and it has been really hard, is just stress. Stress, I have noticed. I've gained 5 pounds, which is not a whole lot. I mean, I'm not complaining. 5 pounds is not much in the grand scheme of things, but I've kept up my healthy eating and my water and everything. And the one thing that's really changed is the amount of stress that I have and I'm carrying. And I know stress is not good for our relationship. It's not good for the way I feel.
It's not good for your long-term health.
No. And
I mean, some stress is. There are studies that show that stress can increase performance. But when you have chronic stress or traumatic stress and just high levels of stress, performance declines. And
so
this is established with
yeah.
research. We learned this at the Air Force Academy.
And this
It was a big
where I kind of
deal.
feel that I'm at. So I love that I've built my habits of health. And so now I just want to continue working on that. Leveling up, finding the next goal and the next challenge,
lean and
not just
green
become sedentary.
Is one of the vocabulary words that we try to
lean
do.
and green.
And trying to, 5 and 1, but trying to eat every 2 or 3 hours and trying to, eat a lot of protein.
I noticed too, even when we eat out,
Healthy
which we
fats.
eat out, is being very, like last night, I had a burger, but I didn't have bread with my burger. And that's not even weird for me anymore. I don't even miss the bread on my burger. So
I literally sometimes order a salad.
You do.
Which I
You would
never
have
did
ordered
that in
just
my
a
life
salad.
before. But
A
it's
salad
good.
with
I've had
protein,
some
it
great
is.
salads.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the Wonderlink. So here, I may need you to open up your phone. This week, I finally got, speaking of sleep, my new CPAP. I'm very thankful to the Veterans Administration for, sending me for a sleep study and getting me on a CPAP when we were in Oklahoma City. And I went up to Salisbury because it was just faster to pick it up there. There's a bigger VA hospital facility there. And so when I left the VA hospital complex, I ended up driving, I think it was like on Old Concord Road, but I drove by this plaque on the side of the road that said Dixonville Cemetery Burial Ground for slaves and the descendants of slaves from the mid-1800s until like 1960. And I said, oh my gosh, I gotta stop and see this. And I had noticed what looked like a military cemetery with all kinds of white granite, gravestones, all, hundreds and hundreds of them nearby. And so anyway, this is the Wonderlink. Now it's kind of a Wanderlink too, but it does make me wonder all sorts of things. And I actually I recorded 2 videos that I published this week. One from the Dixonville Cemetery, and I titled it Salisbury Slave Cemetery. And a local group there did a lot of fundraising and work to restore this area. Oh my gosh, honey, there's a snake. It's small though. It's okay. It's small. See him right there? He's a brown snake right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or is he a gecko?
I don't know. But let's leave him over there.
No, I'm not going to get him. Actually, I think
it's a gecko.
I don't know.
I think it's a snake. I hope his mama's not around.
I'm not
Does he have legs?
sure.
I think he has legs.
Oh, he's a
it has
gecko.
legs.
He's a gecko.
Okay.
Yeah, there were a couple geckos over there. Like, look at that snake. Things are getting warm here, so it's exciting to be out in the woods.
No, it's not exciting. Snakes are not exciting.
Yeah, they are exciting. Not always in a good way. Stress isn't always good, right? Stress can be.
That's right.
Anyway, so I'll include these links in the show notes, but DixonvilleMemorial.com is the website for not only the cemetery that's there, but also a school that was later named the Lincoln School, but it was originally called the Colored Graded School, and it was the first school for African Americans in Salisbury. Salisbury was the site of a prisoner of war camp in the Civil War, and thousands of Union soldiers died in 1864 and 1865 and were buried in trenches in unmarked graves as unknown soldiers, and that led to the establishment of the Salisbury National Cemetery. And so, anyway, I recorded a video both at the Dixonville Cemetery and by the Lincoln School, and then I also recorded an even longer one at the Salisbury National Cemetery. But, I don't know what you want to say about this, but I want to say, and I put this at the end of the post, we live in a time where there is a very active discouragement in national media to talk about historical facts and historical events and experiences that have shaped and continue to shape our present, like slavery, like racism, like systemic racism, which exists. And, both of us feel really strongly that it's important to talk about history and to discuss these things and to not be afraid. And so I think coming to a place like this cemetery and burial ground for slaves and the ancestors of slaves and many other African Americans, in Salisbury, like we have several that we know of. I know of two here, in Charlotte, one's right across from our school, and I've got a video to publish about that, right across from Sardis Presbyterian Church. There's another one that's called Roseland Cemetery that's been restored in Matthews, where we live. Anyway, I think it's really, really important to talk about these things, and it just hasn't been very many years since the Civil War. It hasn't been very many years since we desegregated our schools. It hasn't been very many years since women have had the right to vote in our nation. It hasn't been very many years since women were allowed to fly in the Air Force and to become astronauts. And, we're, I think, as a society, in many cases, frustrated about what seems to be the slow pace of change. But when you kind of take a step back, we've come a long way in a short amount of time, and we still have so far to go. But I really am thankful, and I find it invigorating in a wonder-inspiring way to live in a place that has the history. I mean, here we're at this Canal State Park, Landsford State Park, is that right? Mm-hmm. Let's say it right. Landsford Canal State Park. And I mean, as I was saying, walking down this trail, like every time we've ever hiked on a trail on this earth, we've been hiking on an old earth. The earth is what? We think 4.5 billion years.
We just saw the sign too where it was the Warriors Trail. So this was a trail that went through from Virginia to
the Great Lakes to Georgia.
So this was a very
for
popular,
centuries
trail.
Linked colonial America. So there's something about being in a space where you have a greater awareness of the human history. I mean, Oklahoma has all kinds of human history, right? I mean, and we have that 36 federally recognized tribes living within the borders of the state. There were even more tribes, and there's all kinds of layers there. But I have wondered and thought about a lot of things, and one of the things that I believe we need to do is to tell stories and to invite others to share about our history, about some of the difficult times that we've lived through and those experiences, and not to whitewash history. And are we even supposed to say whitewash history? I don't know if we're even supposed to use that word anymore. But I'm saying, let's confront and deal with the history that we have, not because we want to cause a particular group to feel guilty or bash someone, but I mean, we need to know what our history is so that we can do better today than we did in the past. And also so we can understand and acknowledge.
And bring honor
to
those memories.
Absolutely.
I want to honor those memories
and
honor the sacrifices, that people have made so that we now can walk this trail and experience these beautiful things and honor the...
And we can also be aware of how these things continue to influence the present, right? Because, both, I don't know, maybe someday we'll do an episode. There's a lot of things I'd like to talk about that are going to be more challenging to talk about than, hey, it's great to be in the woods and see the flowers. But we haven't, I don't think, spent a lot of time in our lives being aware and talking about having white privilege.
Well, we're still learning.
We're still learning, absolutely. We're still learning about so many different things. And, when you have friends who are African American or, in different ethnic groups, and they're able to share with you some of their experiences, your eyes can really be open to a different reality, a different way that some people are treated by the same people that and that treat you a certain way. And it can just really be a very positive thing, but also a distressing and challenging thing, I think. Yeah, somebody's tail is just trashed. Rosie has basically used her tail as a broom to sweep up as many leaves as possible on the trail.
Yes, and it's a big mess.
And she enjoys it.
Yes.
What a good girl.
So,
okay.
This has been wonderful.
All right. Yep. That means you're ready to go?
Yeah,
you're
pretty
done?
much.
You're done?
Yeah.
I think I'm ready to eat.
I'm hungry.
Go find some food in Columbia, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm glad we did this early. I'm glad we got to episode 7 and we didn't wait too long on the weekend. But it's been wonderful reflecting.
Yeah. How can people, we need to write down the ending part. Sarah does a good job at the end of doing our ending. So Moose, all right. If anybody knows why dogs sometimes become more dominant and want to stand on things, Moose is standing on this log.
He's saying he wants to
For the first time at the dog park, he jumped up on, you don't want me to tell that?
I don't care, but it's like nobody cares about that.
Well, girls are interested in the dogs.
Okay.
Moose was just, he jumped up on a picnic table at the dog park around a lot of people. We're going to have to get a serious brush to clean out Rosie's tail. Okay, so for people who want to follow us and the podcast, tell them how to do it, Mom.
I don't know. It's something on Facebook.
No, it's on your website.
I do the part that says.
Okay, I'll tell you to do that in a minute. So, ShellyFryer.com/podcast. Okay, what's your part, Mom?
Stay curious, have fun, and go on adventures.
That's right, and go outside. Yeah. All right, have a great week, everybody.
Wes and Shelley Share is a weekly podcast recorded and published on Sundays by Wesley and Shelley Fryer of Matthews, North Carolina. Learn more and find links to connect on social media to Wes and Shelley by visiting ShellyFryer.com/podcast. Content on this podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Only 3.0 license. The Wes and Shelley Share podcast is recorded and published with Anchor and distributed on all major podcast channels, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and more. Please share our show on social media and tell others about us. Let us know on Facebook or via other means what you like about the show, that you're listening, and if you have any suggestions for future episodes. Stay curious, go outside, and keep exploring.